It's Friday, which means it's time for another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything Alien Romulus Edition. We put the call out earlier in the week to ask us all of your pressing alien questions, and boy, did you come through. We've had more questions than ever before. Maybe some of it had to do with the fact that we were giving you limited edition Alien Romulus merch, but still, thank you for coming through. Let's kick things off. Our first question is from WD Nazim. I think I'm speaking on behalf of a large majority of the Alien fan base when I ask, with the release of Romulus, which of the previous movies are still considered canon? We know that the first and second installment, as well as Prometheus, were referenced in this movie, but to what extent of the story do you guys think Ridley Scott or the other producers will keep for future reference? Okay, so I think all of the movies are still considered canon. Personally, I don't consider the Alien versus Predator movies canon. Those two movies are not very good. I didn't really enjoy them. But the 7 Alien movies that currently exist are potentially canon, I think. This one takes place in between 1 and 2. And there's a Noah Hawley series coming out called Alien Earth, but we have very little information about that series, when it's set, or what might be happening. But I'm really, really excited to know where in the timeline that takes place. But for the most part, because no one has said anything otherwise, I'm assuming all of the movies are canon.
The only ones I kind of want to ignore are the Alien versus Predator ones, only because I feel like they feel like those comics where we have superheroes fighting Predator, fighting Alien. They don't really talk about it other than those 4, 5, 6 issue comics. I think those two can be ignored, but everything else, with the varying qualities those films may be, I think they're still canon. I don't see why they wouldn't be.
I agree.
At Kailash Laxman asks, this movie felt like the perfect way to wrap up Alien and Aliens. Would you have liked to see a third movie after Covenant, wrapping that up and answering all the unanswered questions? What do you think is the future of the franchise? I mean, that's something that we talked about after having seen Romulus, was that where do you want to see Fede go with this? I have no real answer for that at the moment, personally. I think the future of the franchise has to be the xenomorphs. I think that has to be center. I think what Ridley Scott did with Covenant and Prometheus and all that, that's fine. That's out there. We can ignore it, or we can address it later in the future once Ridley Scott's passed away and somebody else can do it. But the point of the Alien movies have to be the aliens, and not just answering the question of the aliens. I don't want to go to the aliens planet. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the alien Supreme Council. I think the alien have to be the center of any future movie coming forward.
I agree. I think, and there's another question that comes up later on, which we'll talk a little bit more about this, on whether the Alien franchise should be a horror franchise or an action franchise, and we'll get to that. But I agree with you with regards to the Alien being front and center. Sure, these human stories are interesting, but for me, the problem with Prometheus and Covenant was that it asked all of those questions that I didn't need asking per se. I know you enjoyed those movies a lot more than I did. I didn't mind Prometheus. I thought it was pretty good. But I think some of the questions that show set up made me feel like it was going in an unnecessary direction, given its horror roots. As for the future of the franchise, yep, Noah Hawley, Alien Earth. It sounds exciting. I mean, even the title is like, we've never been to Earth, right? In any of the Alien movies. So even the title has me excited. I don't know what they're going to do with that. And Noah Hawley is excellent. So I'm hoping he does something very, very cool.
Yeah.
At Adele XADR asks, I've seen a lot of discourse online about how Covenant was the worst Alien movie ever made, but I would genuinely like to hear your take on it. I'm in no way a major fangirl of the franchise, but I am a fan of the universe and have always wondered where Covenant went wrong, because I actually really enjoyed Covenant, and I loved that Romulus had callbacks to Prometheus. I think Fede was smart in that he didn't ignore anything that already existed. So in his writing of Romulus, he made sure he had enough threads as to, one, not disrupt canon, but also kind of respect everything that had already been done. This isn't X-Men Days of Future Past, where they go, hey, let's ignore that shitty Brett Ratner movie and reboot the franchise, right? And so Fede pays close attention to that. However, my problem with Covenant just goes back to what Ridley Scott was trying to do with the engineers and try to explain the origins of man as opposed to focus on the alien. Like the first bit of Covenant felt like an alien movie. It felt like it had all of that tension and suspense and horror elements. And then Fassbender shows up and he just starts talking and giving a TED talk. And I'm like, no, I didn't pay money for a TED talk. And I was just really bored. And I think that's why I think Covenant went off the rails. That was my problem with it.
At Brandon Ho Shingven asks, so what is your take on the AVP duology and where would you put both films on the ranking list of the Alien and Predator franchises?
Oh, both franchises, eh?
Oh, I need a piece of paper for that one. I think the AVP duology stands alone on its own, I think. It's one of those things where it's a meetup of two characters that you never thought you would see and just leave it at that. I don't think a xenomorph fighting a predator is going to make it into the canon of what happens next. And I don't want it to. I think that as a marketing exercise was fine. I'll just leave it at that.
And it's fun, right? And I think that was the point of it because the fans were clamoring for it. It's like a Freddy versus Jason thing. It's like, hey, we've got two great killing machines. What if we put them in a movie together? And you know what? Kudos to the studio. Kudos to 20th Century Fox all those years ago going, hey, this could be fun. Let's have some fun with it. And for me, that's where I rank it. I think it's actually outside of both of these two franchises.
It's like an Elseworld type situation, right?
That's what we'll call it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. We're not going to ignore it, but I don't think it's fair to put either of those films on any serious ranking of the Alien and or Predator franchises.
At Travesty asks, I had fond memories of Alien Resurrection. Why is that movie considered the weakest of the franchise?
Let me go sit down because Uma's got thoughts.
Well, okay. I mean, it's not my favorite movie. I just like it a lot more than other people. I agree it's a terrible film when you think about it in Alien canon, right? Because you got Alien and Aliens that stand head and shoulders above everything else because they were such landmark movies in their own right. One was a landmark action horror movie. One was a landmark horror film. It's been emulated by directors and filmmakers ever since. And so those two are great. And then Alien 3 came along and poor Fincher, this television commercial director, got shafted by the studio because it was his first feature and they didn't trust him and they did all kinds of things to his movie, so much so that he's disowned it. And it's a bit of a wreck. There are certain moments in Alien 3 that are pretty decent, but then that fucking dog alien shows up and it's awful. Anyway, and then Alien Resurrection. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is an interesting French director. It was written by Joss Whedon. He too has disowned that movie. It's got a phenomenal cast. And I think it's a lot of fun. But I think that's the problem with it. I think that's why people dislike it. It's got too much humor, too many haha jokes. Winona Ryder seems a little miscast. But for the most part, I think people don't like it because it almost feels like an alien movie that isn't taking itself seriously as an alien movie. However, if you go back and watch it right now, past all of the judgment from when it first came out, I think you might enjoy it a lot more. I think it's one of those things. I know there are a lot of movies like that which I thought were bad, like terrible, made me so angry when they came out. And then I watched them later in life and I'm like, oh, I don't know why I was so angry with this. It's all right. I mean, it's not great, but it's all right.
It strayed away from what others felt an alien movie should have been.
I agree. Totally agree.
Did we really need to see Sigourney Weaver play basketball? And that be you know what? Not just that, but that be a defining character moment for her, right? She's laying down the law against Ron Perlman. She throws the basketball over her head. She's like, boom, suck it, bitch. And I'm just like, don't know if Sigourney Weaver deserves that.
Also, the human alien hybrid thing was particularly awful, but I blame designers, CGI, visual effects people for that. It was very bad design.
Okay.
And I think that's the thing a lot of people remember.
X-Ray and Drops asks, what other alien out there do you think could beat a xenomorph?
So I got some thoughts
Wow.
on this, my friend. See,
Okay, here we
well,
go.
well, see, here's the thing. The obvious thing is Predator, right? Because it makes perfect sense. So that's why those movies, as a fun exercise, actually made sense. Aliens, perfect killing machines. Predator, the universe's perfect hunters. Put them together. What do you get? Should be good movies, but it wasn't. Anyway, Predator, very, very cool. However, I had some thoughts on some aliens that could give xenomorphs a run for their money. Do you think the creatures from A Quiet Place could fuck up the xenomorphs? Because they are pretty vicious. And then there's the added thing about the silence and all of that stuff.
I don't know, man. I mean, xenomorphs move in silence too. The number of times those massive things have jumped up
Surprise!
on, yeah, have jumped out of a fucking aircon duct out of someone. It just,
Okay. How about the aliens from Pitch Black?
oh, hello. That could be a
Huh.
fun one.
Can?
Yeah.
Those were the ones I was thinking about, which have the potential to maybe take on the xenomorphs. I was thinking of other popular aliens in franchises. Like you've got the insect like things from Starship Troopers.
No.
I still think the xenomorphs can kick their ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Comedy aliens from Mars Attacks.
What about like something like a Borg?
Oh, would a Borg assimilate? You know what? I need to look this up. But I
Okay.
think there was an alien Star Trek crossover at some point in the comics.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, do you go big or do you go small, right? Do you want to go fast or do you want to go like a Borg is like logic based, so there'll be strategies and
That's good
ships,
thinking.
etc., etc., etc.
And they'll also learn very quickly.
They also learn like a hive mind type situation, so that could be quite cool. X-Ray and Drops has really sort of put a nice one on the plate here. I think we've gotten a couple of things to chew on here, I think.
At Kabir Singh asks, is the Alien franchise best enjoyed as a sci-fi horror franchise or a sci-fi action franchise? To that point, would the best installment of the franchise be so because it worked best as a horror entry or as an action story? I don't know. I cannot pick. Like if you ask me which is your favorite, Bahir? Do you have a favorite between Alien and Aliens? Because I can't pick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, and I use those two because that's the example, right? Alien is horror, Aliens is pure James Cameron action. So
I will sort of jam on Kabir Singh's question here. Which one would you want it to be? Would you want the next Alien movie in the franchise to be a sci-fi horror or a sci-fi action? Personally, I want the Alien franchise to remain a sci-fi horror.
I agree. However,
Yeah. Okay.
I think what Fede did with Romulus was a very nice balance because
Yeah.
it was tense and terrifying, but I got just enough action elements and really cool set pieces like that thing that happens in the third act and all of that stuff, which kind of went down the James Cameron route. So that worked for me. So if someone can find a happy balance, like I don't need the straight up aliens, look at my massive guns, I'm hunting them through corridors. I don't need that. Maybe some elements in a sequence potentially, but it doesn't have to be the whole movie for me.
Yeah, like I don't want the next Alien movie to be Wayland Yutani putting together a bunch of hunters and ragtag ragamuffins and putting them on a ship to attack the alien planet. I don't want that, right? What I want is I want another xenomorph somehow making its way onto another spaceship. Maybe a cruise liner. That would be fucking fantastic, right? So just stick with the horror stuff, not necessarily the big bam boom, big guns and explosion situation. WD Nazim asks another question. The one thing that boggled me a little was the fact that no one decided to check up on the abandoned space station, not even the Wei executives. Considering that the research on board seemed extremely important for the company, one might assume that they would keep a close eye on the project.
So I thought they kind of explained this in the movie indirectly, in that it was a new thing that happened, which is why our heroes kind of discovered it and wanted to go up there and get to it. But also that the station was in decay and about to crash into the planet. So my read of it while I was watching the movie was one, either way you went, fuck it, let's let it crash into the planet because it's already going to happen and we can't get there in time. Or two, they hadn't got there in time because at the end of the movie, one of the characters talks about how long it takes for Wei to get here from Homeworld. And they said something like 6 months once the message is sent out. And because Alien is set in a non-hyperspace universe, people can't get to other planets instantly, and it takes a long time to get places. So even if Wei wanted to, I don't think they could get there fast enough, because you're forgetting the reason they put the station out there in the first place was because it was a shithole planet that no one is leaving and everyone was just being abused there as minors. And so they felt no one's going to pay attention to this incredibly important, highly risky research if it's put out there.
My read of it was simple, that whatever experiment that was happening on that space station went oopsie, and Weyland-Yutani was just like, fuck it, we'll let gravity take over and let it drive itself into the space debris and blow itself up. That was kind of my read for it. I just felt like it was a thing that Weyland-Yutani tried, didn't work out, people died, shit happened. Fuck it, we'll just let space take its course and then we'll just write it off in the accounts.
Also because it wasn't the only thing they were doing, because in Aliens as well, it's a different place. And so
Yes.
they're clearly conducting alien research in multiple locations. At Joanne Lim 89 asks, what characters' influences do you think were incorporated into the creation of Andy, his storyline, and his relationship with Rain? Oh, that's an interesting question. But as I saw it, it feels like Andy's relationship with Rain is kind of similar to a lot of movies and novels that feature overprotective siblings. Like, you can go back all the way to Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, and you will have characters where one is more accomplished or smarter than the other, looking after a less capable sibling. Think Rain Man, for example. It feels like those are the influences that we're playing here, because yes, Andy was an android, but he was disabled, if you will, by the lack of a specific chip and the fact that he was repaired by Rain's father. And then so Rain felt like the character with all the faculties until he gets that upgrade. And so there's a very interesting dynamic at play here, but it's a common dynamic. It feels like a very age-old literary trope or film trope.
I didn't think the beginning of the relationship was all that interesting. Only because, like you said, it's a trope that we've seen before. It's a trope that we're so comfortable with. However, once Andy gets the upgrade, I felt like that relationship becomes different. Yes, Andy has now gotten a new directive. However, it really feels like his previous directive of protecting Rain was still in there somewhere.
I think in all of the movies, and it's something the writers and the filmmakers have really exploited over the years, but in all of the Alien movies, more often than not, the synth-human relationship tends to be the most interesting one.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why Fede Alvarez included this one in such a big way as well. There's a lot of story there to mine.
At Tapauzi asks, during your podcast on Romulus, it was discussed that Alien needs to find new ways to seem scary, or there need to be new scenarios where the alien somehow looks absolutely menacing. What say you if the alien gets actual eyes in the next film?
Nah, disagree. No eyes. You know why? I think the lack of eyes are what makes these things so scary.
Yeah.
It's that shiny black phallic dome. There's no expression except when it opens its mouth and then the secondary mouth comes out.
Like, for me, that is what I've always wanted to find out. Like, which mouth eats?
Good point.
Like, if it has a steak, right? Like, does the first mouth go, I just do vegetables, and the bigger mouth do meats and carbs? What is going on?
Or is it like a cow where one mouth stores food for a later time?
Is it a separate stomach? Is there two beings inside one xenomorph? That's interesting.
These are all very interesting questions.
Yeah.
I really hope they don't address them, though.
I do hope they don't. Like, oh, no, you know what I want? You know what I want? I want like an autopsy book.
You think one of those things already exists? We need to look.
I'm surprised it doesn't.
It must
like
exist.
A book written by, I don't know,
Rook.
Yeah, like having taken apart Xenomorph X764, this is what they found. I think that would be fucking cool.
That would be cool.
Honestly, I don't know if I need the alien to evolve. I don't know if I need to see in the next Alien movie where it fires acid from its wrists, or it sings a song. I don't know if I need that. I think the xenomorph as it is, because H.R. Geiger's just a nightmare fuel anyway. I think the xenomorph as a creature is fine. I think what's important is putting it into situations where we don't know. Like, I don't want to see it swimming again. That I don't want to see, because that actually made it less scary.
I think what's interesting about the idea of the xenomorph is that it takes on whatever form it gets implanted into. And so that opens up the potential, right? That's why you had dog alien and humanoid looking alien and all of this stuff. And so maybe that opens up a cool prospect as to where they could take it to make it scarier.
I got it. A face hugger implants itself in a giraffe.
That would be fucking scary, lah.
And then it's a giraffe xenomorph.
Shit.
That's pretty cool, right?
Giraffes are already zany fucking looking animals, lah. But no, just to go back to your question, Tapao, I do think filmmakers have to make that extra effort, because we've seen aliens, face huggers, chest bursters so many times. You have to do cool new stuff to make them scary, which is why even small stuff in Romulus, like when Fede uses that X-ray machine to show us what's going on inside her body, that was a cool effect that made the tension even more palpable. Because now you could see it growing and getting ready to bust out, and that was pretty scary. So yeah, I think that needs to happen, just because we've been exposed or overexposed to these creatures for so long.
Yeah, agreed.
At VMT1103 asks, I never tire of all alien-related movies, but why didn't the alien queen make an appearance?
Here's my non-alien fanboy take on Alien Romulus. I think after so many years of the Alien films, I wouldn't say having lost its way, but having tried different things, I feel like Fede Alvarez needed it to go back to the original. That original 1979 tense suspense, slow building, character-driven, surviving a monster. Because we need to be reminded why these monsters scared us in the first place. So I feel like to introduce a new thing, like an alien queen, or hell, an alien king, or an alien prince, or the alien senate, I think is unnecessary in this movie.
That is a very good analytical answer. I may have a more straightforward, logical, based on narrative answer.
Sure.
Since the alien queen was first introduced in Aliens, and this movie takes place in between those movies, maybe he didn't want to break Conti. It could be. It could be that he didn't want to break canon and Conti, because obviously everyone was so shocked and surprised when they went, "It's a queen!" Well, they didn't actually say that, but you know what I mean.
That would have been funny.
That would have been funny.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get that. I get that too.
So maybe that. But I like your answer too. It's a lot more. It's a lot more comprehensive. It makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
You thought about it.
I did think about it. Yeah. At Constellation Poet asks, Alien felt very tense and suspenseful, definitely fitting for the horror genre, but Aliens felt a bit more actiony. These tonal shifts in the franchise, in my opinion, shows how versatile the core story and central tenets are. What do you guys think?
Totally agree. The template is perfect for a whole bunch of different stories. And I think over the years, the various movies, whether you love them or hate them, have proven that. Alien 3, set on a prison planet, completely different take. It wasn't about massive corporations hiding stuff from the public and working dangerously with things they don't understand. It had nothing to do with that, right? And then Alien Resurrection kind of went back to that. But then you had Prometheus and Covenant that went really super philosophical and creationist and all of this stuff. So totally agree with you, Constellation Poet. I think it is such a strong basic core that it can be used in a multitude of ways. And I think clever creators and writers and filmmakers may find interesting new ways. Hell, Bahir, you may get your Alien musical. It's possible. Who knows?
I don't know if I want it. I'll be honest, I don't know if I want it.
Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me.
You shut your mouth. No, I agree. I think that's what was really key about that first Alien. There's a monster out in space that you cannot kill. That's it, right? So, I don't know what it is, 25, 30 years after the original, Ridley Scott decides to ask, what about this? What happened with the space jockey that we saw in the first Alien? He went and told that story. So the basis of this universe is interesting. It's everlasting. There are so many places and things you can do and tell and go, that all comes down to this idea that we don't know what the fuck is up with the xenomorph. And I think that was the point, right? You then, sure, you want to do a horror movie, go for it. You want to do an action version of said horror movie, go for it. You just know that the xenomorph cannot be killed. Its blood is acid. And close your mouth when you see a facehugger. That's it. Like, those are the rules. You then play with it. And yeah, that foundation is strong and it is exciting and so open to interpretation.
At Emius asks, would you like to have a movie that's from the aliens' POV or know their thoughts via subtitles? So this goes back to what you just said. I think it's possible. I don't know that I need it, but I think the franchise allows for it. But I will say, I don't need to go to the alien homeworld. I don't need to know what they're thinking. I don't need to know if they're making jokes while they're killing people.
Because that's not the point. The point is that we don't know what is going on with these things. Are they thinking? Are they communicating? Are they conversing? Are they singing songs? I don't care. What I do know is I, as a human being, and thus the proxies in said movie, cannot kill them. At Reese H asks, would you be interested in an AVP movie from Fede Alvarez and Dan Trachtenberg?
Yes. Yes. 100% yes. Because Prey was fucking amazing. And I go back to this idea of fans of the original franchise taking it on. Like, I'm glad Ridley Scott didn't make Romulus. I think it needed Fede Alvarez, who was a fan of the series. Sure, Ridley Scott can produce, but he was too involved. He was too invested. You needed a new set of eyes from someone who understood the franchise. And I think that's what happened with Dan Trachtenberg and Predator and Prey. And if the both of them team up and make an AVP movie, fuck man, that's going to be great.
The reason I loved Dan Trachtenberg's Prey is because of where it was set.
Sure.
That world that Predator showed up in was way more interesting than if we were to see Glenn Powell. I want to see more Glenn Powell, but Glenn Powell in another Predator film.
What if no humans? What if it is actually aliens and predators?
I'm up for that, right? Like, if the movie opens and we're in a Predator ship and it shows up, in fact, it fucking sees the remnants of the Nostromo and it picks up more and then it just, completely silent movie. I'm game.
That's the movie I want. Fede Alvarez and Dan Trachtenberg need to make a silent film, which is Alien versus Predator, because neither talk. They just make noises. I love it.
Only then would I want to see the movie from the point of view of the xenomorph. You can have the Predator show up, like breaking into the hull with its special spacesuit, whatever, just like running scans and shit. And then you cut to the xenomorph in an air duct, just like, oh, who is this fucker that's here now? Right? Like, that's interesting. No dialogue. I don't want subtitles. Don't give me any of that. Just give me 2 hours of that movie. I'm on board.
At faith.wzx asks, 4DX or IMAX, which is best to experience Alien Romulus? I still think 4DX is a bit of a gimmick. I do want to try it. I haven't yet, but I hear fun things from people who have. However, for a true cinematic experience, I will always recommend IMAX.
I say this. I say if you've seen Alien Romulus on IMAX, then yes, you can do 4DX. But if it's your first time, Alien Romulus deserves to be seen on IMAX. At Jagger asks, what are the 3 elements needed in the next installment in order to grow the fan base? A Predator. No dialogue. That's it. Refer to previous question.
I totally agree with Bahir's assessment. Thank you very much. No, I think all the elements are there, to be honest. I think it's just how the filmmakers and the writers want to exploit those elements to tell a good story. And I think that's what was lacking in a lot of the other Alien movies that either went off the rails or became too self-indulgent. And I think the reason we like Romulus so much is that the story was nice, it was simple, it kind of built into the canon of what already existed and gave us the thrills we were looking for. So all of the elements are there. It's just how they choose to exploit and use it.
Yeah, agreed.
At Daphne M88 asks, do you think the Alien franchise should start focusing on producing more movies or streaming? So here's the thing, Bahir.
Yeah,
And this is the shocking thing, right?
right.
Romulus was supposed to be a bloody streaming movie.
I heard about that.
And that's crazy. And I think it's because Fede Alvarez showed his first cut to Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott went, you have something big here. I don't know how much of an influence that had in the decision to release it theatrically, because it made a ton of money over its first weekend, and rightly so. And I felt Prey should have been on the big screen as well, because I wanted to see all of those just amazing shots on the big screen. But like we said before, Noah Hawley is making a TV show based on Alien called Alien Earth. We don't know what it's about, but it should be cool. For me, I think it just depends on the kind of story you want to tell. And I think this template or core characters, like Constellation Port was talking about, are so good and expansive and have so much potential that they should be doing both. And I'm hoping that the success of Alien Romulus means that Disney and 20th Century Studios have the confidence to go, listen, let's try stuff, because there is a big fan base for the last 40 years who love these characters and want to be scared. Let's just give them more avenues to be scared and experience this lah.
Again, this is based purely on conjecture because we don't know what Noah Hawley's Alien series is going to be. But I don't want a Monster of the Week show.
No.
Neither do I want a show about a ship going around hunting or researching xenomorphs. So I don't know what that world is. I don't know what that 8, 10, 12 episode series will be. And I think that is the job of smarter people. Because up till this point, essentially most of the Alien films, other than Prometheus and Covenant, have been Monsters of the Week, right? Each episode, each installment of the film is, oh, look, another bunch of humans either accidentally stumble onto a xenomorph or go around actively poking a xenomorph. Xenomorph shows up, bing, bang, boom, fights, death, boom. But over the course of 8 hours, 12 hours, I don't know what that world is going to be. So I haven't thought enough about it to know what I'd want to see from a series. I'm happy for it to be more movies, but I don't know what a series will be.
But I'm willing to be surprised.
Only because I think Noah Hawley will surprise us.
Fingers crossed. I'm really excited about that one.
I'm more excited for it post-Alien Romulus.
Absolutely agree. I was so disappointed for so long that Romulus has got me excited again about the Alien franchise.
And I think it's because Fede Alvarez has essentially gone back to the roots of the Alien franchise with Alien Romulus, right? Fede Alvarez has delivered in Alien Romulus what essentially older fans and newer fans want, which is a scary alien monster movie. That's it. I don't need to know the engineer. I don't need to know the space jockey. I don't need to know any of those things because there's a fucking xenomorph around.
Before we wrap, can I make a recommendation?
Go for it.
There is an Audible audiobook.
Oh my.
Which adapts the never-made script by William Gibson for Alien 3.
Oh.
It is absolutely fantastic. It is a dramatized audiobook as well. And it stars Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn reprising their characters from Aliens.
Oh, wow.
And it is a direct sequel to Aliens. So all of these characters don't get killed off screen like what happens in Alien 3, the movie. And it is absolutely fantastic. It actually tells you the story that you wanted after you watched Aliens. So if you are a fan of the franchise, and mind you, there are many versions of Alien 3 out there. Different writers were asked to do treatments and scripts, but William Gibson's one is by far my favorite, and it was adapted into an Audible audio drama. I strongly urge you to go check it out. It's absolutely brilliant, and it is the sequel we never got. So that is my Alien recommendation for you for this week. In the meantime, thank you so much for all of your questions. We hope we answered them satisfactorily. That brings us to the end of another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything. Don't forget, keep those questions coming in. You know how to reach out, Goggler MY, all of our social media feeds. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.